tell us more about why you chose this particular period when I think most of us think of many other periods in American history as being much more relevant to immigration.
It is a weird period because it's just a series of failures. It's people trying over and over and over. I was trying to say in my lecture a little bit, but like they are failing every time. I mean, it is like a 40. I mean, in a way, it's so bad that even though I know the history well, I still am astonished that the 1965 law happens because I know so deeply how many people tried to end these ethnic quotas from the 20s and utterly failed. I mean, didn't even come close, right? But it turns out, I think if you look at that period more closely, despite the kind of headline failures to change immigration laws, there's all this churning happening underneath, right? So when I was just talking about building this moral argument of a nation of immigrants, that stuff is happening. And even the question of what it means to be like a mainstream American is changing too. So I think whiteness, the who counts as white is changing, right? So you have all these Jews and Catholics who come in, between, let's say, the turn of the 20th century, and they seem like utterly foreign to people when they come. I mean, now because of our kind of conception of who counts as white, it would seem weird to differentiate between an Italian American, an Irish American, a Jewish American. But at this time, people are really kind of horrified at their arrival and how different they seem. They're deeply worried about their assimilation. It's between the 1920s and the 1960s that this group really does sort of announce its own assimilation. They're basically saying, we are part of the American project. And that's why they're so eager to abolish these quotas. I mean, I think that's why immigration is not really just about who's out there and wants to come in. It's about who's already here and whether they actually belong. And that's how the people who looked at this whole fight, that's how they saw it. They didn't see it as being about sort of a potential relative coming of their own. It was really saying, I'm Jewish, but I'm still American. I'm Irish Catholic, but I'm still American. And that's what their fight is about. So there's something about the way that they change their approach. I think they create this really very powerful kind of new nationalism around what immigrants mean to the country. All of that is something that we are living with now. And I also just thought I focused on it because when you see all that failure, by the time it happens, it's kind of stunning, right? If you don't know how hard it is, you don't quite appreciate as much what is done when it finally happens. That's how it felt to me. Like, I think I went into this really taking for granted that my family was allowed to be here, but seeing how many people fought, how many people did not even live to see it, despite spending decades on this. It just makes you appreciate it and just have a sense of, oh, this wasn't automatic. Someone had to really work hard for this.